السلام عليكم. صباح الخير للجميع. Materials and assemblies are the building blocks of projects. So if we get them right, we get a very large portion of fire safety compliant. So my presentation is about achieving compliance from production to project completion. Our work at Thomas Bell-Wright, as a background, has been in the heart of verifying compliance for assemblies and materials. We have started in 1995 as a company providing testing for curtain walls, which are exterior glass walls. And since 2009, we have added fire testing of materials and fire-rated elements to our range of services, providing the ASTM, UL, NFPA tests that are much needed as per the Saudi Building Code. As companies working in testing, inspection, and certification, we are required to have credentials to practice this work here in the Saudi market. So our laboratory is accredited by GAC here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we are also accredited by the Saudi Accreditation Center for Inspection. Certification bodies are approved by SASO, and we have our approval as well for certifying materials. We are now operating in very special and exciting times with the Saudi mega projects already starting and the construction boom to achieve the very ambitious vision of 2030. In order to prepare for this vision, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have taken many steps to establish strategies, regulations, and codes to achieve this. If we have a background about codes and we look up the oldest building code in the world, we will find that it was generated not far away from here in Iraq during the 18th century BC and the reign of Hammurabi. Hammurabi's reign was like all an eye for an eye, al-ain bil-ain. So I'm just going to read one line of the code for the audience. If a builder builds a house for someone and does not construct it properly, and the house falls and kills its owner, then the builder shall be put to death. So basically what this says in very basic language is that the person who builds a house should be qualified to build it, and if it's not done properly, there should be accountability. Of course, since then, the construction process have gone a long way, and many codes have been evolved to clarify different types of practice related to the construction process. The Saudi Building Code was established in 2018 based on the International Building Code. A lot of work has gone into the code to make it suitable for Saudi as a location and as climate. As per the royal decree, this code is the only acceptable building code that should be followed for construction and used in case of arbitration. So the building code is not only the books related to the code itself, any other subsequent executive regulations and appendices are also considered to be part of the code. The objectives of the code, the first objective is safeguarding lives and property, improving the efficiency, operation, and sustainability of buildings, rationalizing energy and water consumption, structural adequacy and stability of buildings and structures, and regulating the professional relationship between practitioners in the building and construction sector. As we said earlier in the panel discussion, the code is quite large. It is a comprehensive and it spreads across many disciplines. It is hard for one person to be an expert in all these parts, and the consultant has to achieve many things at the same time. So it's advisable to talk to the experts, to a fire and life safety consultant, to advise you on the best way to achieve everything related to energy consumption, green building code, and at the same time, apply the codes related to fire safety, which are 201 and 801. After announcing the code to be the reference code for buildings, there was a 5-year implementation period. But still, during this period, from the beginning, fire safety and energy conservation were prioritized to be implemented regardless of this implementation plan. I'll just read in Arabic for reference to everybody. تطبق متطلبات واشتراطات الكود المتعلقة بالعزل الحراري وأنظمة الوقاية والحماية من الحريق على جميع أعمال البناء فور سريان النظام دون النظر في مراحل التدرج, which shows that fire safety and energy consumption are prioritized. We had a bit of a discussion earlier about the construction process, how the owner wants to build a project for a certain intent, maybe to sell it out or to keep it as his headquarters. He will go to a consultant and ask him to design the project as per the code. The consultant will then put on a set of documents, which are the specification and the tender package, and issue this project for tender. A contractor comes and offers to build this project for a certain amount of money with the materials, assemblies, and structures that make the project, taking into consideration that all these materials should be sourced as compliant to the code. Materials are fabricated in factories, they should be tested, they should be certified by certification body, and then at the end we should deliver a project that is safe for the tenants and end users. So this is the compliance path that I'm proposing for achieving this. So the first thing is, during the design stage, is to have enough time to look at all the aspects of the building code and specify the right material from the beginning, because this will be the benchmark that will be followed throughout the construction process by all the other stakeholders. Testing and certification of materials that are the building blocks of this project should be established clearly in the specifications, and the requirements should be clear to safeguard the construction process and make sure that these materials are compliant. During the material approval stage, also the consultant should be diligent enough to look into the details of these materials, make sure that they are the same as the construction project specification, and then inspections to ensure that what is installed is the same as what was approved. The project specification will serve as a roadmap that tells everyone what needs to be accomplished, how it should be done, and what standards or criteria should be met. Test standards are very important tools that enable us to test different types of materials, new materials, old materials, all the range of the materials in the market in a consistent manner, to allow us to make a meaningful comparison between these materials, to put them into classifications and to show how they comply to international testing standards. So this will enable us to pick the right material for the project. The building code, as was discussed earlier by Mr. Mustafa and Mutada as well, is that the building code is the minimum that should be followed when designing a project. If you want to go over and above the code, of course you can. You have to discuss it with the owner, as it was pointed out, and mention why you should go there and what is your project needs as well. And it is encouraged to do so in case you can for your project. When you start designing, first of all, you look at your project use. So if I am living in a residential building, a small residential building, in case of fire, I would know the building that I'm living in, and I can evacuate it in a timely manner because I am very well aware of everything inside the building, and the occupants are not many. So a building can be evacuated faster, and the people who are using the building are well versed with the design of the building. Whenever we go to other types, like assembly buildings with many people occupying the building, business, institutional, people who are using a building for a first time, such as a hotel, they will not be very much familiar with this, and in case of fire, they will need some time to find the exit and evacuate the building. And this is the basis of design, is to give enough time for evacuation in case of fire and try to stop the spread of fire. The fire life safety consultant will put a strategy that combines two elements, active systems and passive systems. So this strategy for active systems, it is your smoke detectors, your fire alarms, your sprinkler systems that get activated when it senses a high temperature or a fire. These work with other systems that are called passive systems, and they are the subject of this session, which are the materials that resist the fire from moving from one place to another, such as a wall, or the materials that are the lining of this place, this space. So for example, if you have low ignitability, a low temperature of ignition, then this material will catch fire fast. You should look also for limits on calorific value and the amount of heat that this material emits. You should look for low combustibility, a low flame spread, and smoke development. Most of the requirements for materials and assemblies go hand in hand in the code. So materials will be anything that is aligning for interior or exterior, and assemblies will be more complex structures such as walls, fire-rated walls, penetrations, or exterior layered cladding on a wall. I will give an example about materials, assemblies, and how they link to the code and the building use. If we look at this table from chapter 8, we will find that according to building use, there is a certain requirement for material to satisfy A, B, or C when tested to a test standard called ASTM E84. B being the least combustible, A being the least combustible, and then B and C. So if we look at the first three columns, this is sprinklered and non-sprinklered. So when active and passive systems work together, you might have a less requirement. When a building is not sprinklered, you will require to go to a higher requirement of A or B. In addition to this, you will have other requirements for assemblies, such as exterior walls or doors or walls, as an assembly of how they resist fire and how they reduce the spread of fire. So this is the combination of requirements that should be in a project specification. The requirements here in KSA are related to the Saudi Building Code, and there are other requirements that are related to SASO, the Saudi Standards Metrology and Quality Organization. These are technical regulations that cover many products that are traded in the market. And you are not allowed to trade these products without certain approvals from SASO. These are domestic products, toys, some of the electric products, and some construction products. According to the building code, there are requirements for certification, which I will explain later on in the slides, and testing of building materials. So some of this is required to be tested and certified by SASO, and some are requested to be tested and certified by an approved agency, which is also approved by SASO um, as, as a requirement in KSA. So these are some of the approved international third-party certification bodies, and this is one of the requirements of SASO. So I will go through two types of materials to explain how we can comply by adapting both. So the first type of material is aluminum composite panels. These are the exterior panels that we use in cladding systems. They are consisting of layers. The outer layer is aluminum, the inner layer is aluminum, and there is a filler in between which is called the core. It is joined together with an adhesive. According to the requirement of SASO 2752, these are the minimum requirements for these panels. There are physical requirements such as tensile strength, compressive strength, and other requirements. Related to fire is, for example, self-ignition limits on the core. And if you can see, there is also a very special way to classify this material according to SASO, which is FR1, FR2, and FR3. So these particular classifications are relevant to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as per SASO requirement. If you look at the table, some of it is in green and the other, so this first column here is in green, relating it to ASTM, which is also a requirement of the Saudi Building Code, and the other ones are related to another standard called 13501-1, and this is not a requirement of the Building Code, but a SASO requirement. So sometimes the SASO requirement overlap the code requirements, but has other tests as well for materials. And we should take this into consideration in the project specification. This is the one which was in the green column, the ASTM E84 U-line panels in a device called the Steiner tunnel. And you test it based on the spread of the flame. You either get A, B, or C. And as I said before, A is the least combustible. This is the panel before the test, and this is a panel after the test. In addition to using a panel and choosing a classification from SASO, we still have a risk related with the installation as a whole. Because if you have a cladding panel outside a building, you will still have a risk of fire going behind this panel and spreading behind the cladding system if you have not installed things like cavity barriers or used a combustible insulation or other disciplines in the building that are combustible. So in order to minimize this risk, I have here one of the requirements of the code which references assembly test, and that is NFP 885. So while the exterior face of the material can be tested separately, the code requirements for materials and assemblies also require tests of assemblies and not only the components and the materials. So this is a very, very important test. It can give confidence to the project team that the full design system meets the code requirement as a whole. The test goes on for 30 minutes, and based on the height of flame, the rise in temperature on sensors outside on the cladding and within the cavities within the system, you have a pass or a fail. Another type of building materials that I will talk about is a door assembly. So a door assembly is the door together with the frame of the door and the ironmongery and all the other add-ons that come with this as a full installation. This is the SASO requirement that refers to SASO NFPA 80. And in NFPA 80, it says that you have to establish whether the door is like 1 hour or 2 hour or 3 hour fire rated by testing it to UL10C, UL10B, or NFPA 285, which is a test standard. This is an example of a door test. So a door test for resistance to fire, you fit this in front of a test furnace and you test it and see how much it will endure according to the pass-fail criteria. So if you look at the code requirement, this is not enough. There is a requirement for testing and also for listing. So it shall be listed, if you notice highlighted in yellow, in accordance with 10C and UL 305. So what does this mean? A manufacturer can bring a door for testing, but we will not be able to link this door to the factory or the manufacturing process. So we do not know if the rest of these doors were fabricated in the same manner, and if I test the other doors, whether they will perform in the same way. So the requirements of listing and labeling is related to the production at the factory, and it enables the manufacturer to be certified and then to fabricate these doors in a consistent manner and in a repeatability to achieve always the same result through the certification process. So, which brings me to my third step of compliance. So the certification process starts at the factory with the review of the product details. The certification body has to visit the factory and see the production line, pick a sample that is being fabricated, whether it is a panel or a door or any other system, take the product and test it, and then based on the result of this test, you go back to the factory and make sure that it has a quality system, it is producing all these systems in a consistent manner and in a repeatable manner. If you establish that, then you can allow them to use a certification mark. After they have a certification mark, this door will be certified, and this means that this line of production that is done consistently as per a quality control process meets a certain criteria when tested to a certain standard. The certification body also has to regularly visit the factory to make sure that it is still compliant. So these visits will be twice a year or 3 times a year, depending on the operation and the compliance. So this is what listing means, is that each certification body that has visited factories and that has sampled these products, tested them, and made sure that these products are fabricated consistently, they can publish this in a list. So this is what listed means for materials and assemblies. And this list will include details of this product, and it is available for the general public, whether in part or in whole, to review and to make sure that it is valid. This is another example of a listed product. So if you look at this example, it is actually a door that was certified, and this links basically the location of the factory, describes the details of the door, has the drawing of the door, gives you the test standard, the result, and then these doors will be listed and they will be given labels. So a unique certification number is issued, it is put on a label, and these labels are put on the doors that you see at site as a fire-rated material and part of the fire safety of a project. Many details are available regarding the leaf construction, everything related to the listed products, and there are many companies, there are many certification bodies that can list fire-rated products or any other assemblies in a building. This brings me to my last point in ensuring compliance, which is inspection. There are credentials required from inspection companies, especially for government buildings. So you should have accreditation by the Saudi Accreditation Center to inspect on site. There are lots of buildings, there are lots of details that go into the construction of a building, and these are quite complicated, and they need to be inspected in a timely manner to make sure they are done properly. This is an example of inspecting a certified panel. The panel will have a unique number. You can actually check a unique number online and make sure that what is installed on site is what was certified. So you can actually go to site and look for these certification references, and you can validate them online, make sure they are still valid. The same applies to doors. The SBC calls for doors to be labeled. You can find a label sometimes with a QR code that will take you to a website where you can check thicknesses, details, the way that the door is put together in order to make sure that it's compliant. At the end of my presentation, I would like to say, and as was discussed in the panel before, is that fire safety is a collaborative effort. It starts with the building owner, so the owner should give enough time for the consultant to research the proper material and to include them in the tender package. The contractor should source these materials to a certain degree of knowledge. He should know what the requirements are and follow the consultant specifications. Factories should make materials consistently according to a quality control plan, and they should provide clear testing and certification details for the market for its use. Inspection bodies and certification bodies should present also their information clearly so that the factory can use it in a proper way. And this is all to achieve a better and more safe project for tenants and building users. Thank you all. Thanks.